Welcome to the Stressless Eating Podcast, where we help diet-obsessed and food-crazed women break themselves out of the food and body prison, end the dieting madness, and take control of their health for good. I'm your host, Leanne Ellington, and this podcast is about answering one question. How can you heal your relationship with food and your body and take a practical approach to this whole self-love journey, but without all that restriction, obsession, and shame, and without needing years of therapy to do so? If you want to know the answer, you're in the right place. All this information is 100% free, so please subscribe to and review our podcast. Okay, so does this sound familiar? Monday, you're gung-ho. You've got everything you need in your fridge to ensure that this low-carb, high-protein week is gonna be a success. You've booked yourself into one of those classes at the gym that even though you definitely have to motivate yourself to get there, it burns a lot of calories and you sweat a lot. At this point, you're actually looking forward to getting in some healthy foods and eating clean because after your last diet, you went off the deep end so hard that your body is now screaming at you, feeling bloated, heavy in the middle, and tight in your pants, that you are actually looking forward to feeling those hunger pangs again from dieting. Tuesday, you're feeling so great. You're already feeling lighter and leaner. This dieting stuff isn't so hard, you say to yourself. I got this. Wednesday, every muscle in your body hurts so good from going from 0 to 60 in a matter of days with your workouts, and merely sitting down on the toilet to pee is an endeavor. But you're committed, and even though your body is screaming at you to stretch and take a hot bath, you're uber committed to your weight loss goals, and the gym, it is a calling. Thursday, the tiredness and lethargy start creeping in from lack of carbs. Suddenly, your leafy green salad with a tablespoon of olive oil topped with grilled chicken, it doesn't seem to be doing the trick anymore. And you're looking at your coworker's lunch with eyes of envy. You think, darn it, why does she get to eat anything she wants and look amazing? And I have to starve myself just to lose a couple of pounds. Back to your salad you go. Friday. All is going well when your husband texts you telling you he wants to spend some quality time with you, and he's planning to take you to your favorite restaurant after work. Your mind starts racing. Oh no, what will I eat? I can't go there. It will ruin everything. Doesn't he know I'm on a diet? Why would he tempt me like that? What the heck? Crap. Now I feel like I'm a bad wife. He was just trying to do something nice for me. Ugh. And the internal cycle of chatter continues. Saturday, you wake up thinking, dang it, what's wrong with you? You had chicken parmesan, pasta, half a piece of cheesecake, and 2 glasses of Cabernet last night. You've ruined everything. All your hard work is down the drain now. And then the next voice chimes in. See, this is just what you do. You can't stick with anything. You're destined to stay this way forever. What's the point? Sigh. Sunday, screw it. Pancake and mimosa brunch. Donut as a snack. Pizza for dinner. Binge watch a season of Grey's Anatomy on Netflix as you mindlessly scroll through Facebook. Monday. Now you simply believe yourself less and less every time you hear yourself saying, this time it's going to be different, or I'll start again on Monday. But doing something feels better than doing nothing. And even though you aren't actually on, you're not entirely off either. You've officially entered into the gray zone. And the cycle continues. Does any of this sound familiar to you? Do you struggle to stick with anything long term? Do you feel stuck on that all or nothing diet roller coaster? Well, don't worry, you are so not alone. Do you know how many women I talk to that are in exactly the same place? Hopping from one diet to the next, knowing in their heart of hearts that it might have a different name or different rules, but it's just another version of the same thing. Restriction, micromanaging what you eat or how much you exercise, relying on willpower and motivation to get you through it, and obsession, always thinking about food or thinking about your body or thinking about your weight. and it is friggin' exhausting. And I have so much compassion and love for you because this is how I used to live my life, and this was the life of all of my clients at one point too. So why do we do it? Why do we overeat? Why do we commit to something and then ruin it by ditching our plans and again, overeat or overindulge or overconsume? This is one of the top things I get asked. Like, Leanne, why can't I control myself around food? Why do I overeat so much? I want to lose weight and I want more energy, and then I put crap in my body. And this is such an important topic and why I'm excited about today's episode, because it's so rare that I meet a woman that struggles with her body that doesn't also struggle with overeating. So today we're going to put a voice to the question that so many women are asking themselves. So let's get into it, shall we? Overeating comes in many shapes and sizes. There's the whole, I know what I should be eating, but I can't get myself to eat it or stick with it. Then there's mindless eating, comfort eating, stress eating, emotional eating, or eating your feelings, as I like to call it, binge eating, boredom eating. Whatever form it comes in, it's really hard on us. It's hard on our mind, our body, our spirit, our mojo. And I'm sure you've noticed this too, right? Like, it causes us to feel bad physically. So whether it's the discomfort of eating too much or the lethargy we feel when we're in a food coma, it's actually really hard on our bodies. It causes us to feel bad about ourselves, like feeling powerless to control ourselves over food, feeling like a failure, or feeling frustrated because even though we are smart and accomplished and amazing in so many ways, this food thing still is not in check. And it causes us to show up differently in our lives. So whether that's in our relationships because we're ashamed of how we look or feel, whether it's our ability to feel like a good role model to our family, children, coworkers, friends, or whoever it is we feel like we should be setting a better example for, or simply in our ability to feel like we're being a good woman, a good wife, a mom, good partner, sister, friend, boss, employee, you name it. Because when we don't feel good about ourselves because of food, it impacts every other role we play in our lives. And it's so frustrating, right? Like, so why do we do it? So here's the thing. We all have our own different cause and effect cycle for overeating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just simply share the 3 most common ones that came up in my life and the most common ones I see in my clients' lives. So the first one is something that we have and will talk about a lot here on this podcast. You probably guessed it. It is the diet mentality. So whenever we're playing the game of eat less, move more, or the game of control, restriction, deprivation, and obsession, or the game of can't have that, shouldn't eat that, or good, bad, right, wrong foods, it's only a matter of time before we can't take it any longer and we stray from the plan and go overeat. And it's not your fault. Even the most disciplined and strong-willed women can't win when you're playing this kind of losing game. So yeah, that's reason number 1, and I won't go too deep into that as we've already talked about it a lot. All right, so let's talk about reason number 2. Reason number 2 is you still have an emotional or stressful relationship with food. So for me, I started using sugar as my numbing device, my boredom killer, and security blanket from a very young age. It was just always there for me when I needed it. And as an adult, I brought that relationship with me. Only now, food was also, for lack of a better way of saying it, my boyfriend when I was lonely, or my source of relaxation and comfort when I had a hard day or felt stressed. When you have an emotional relationship with food, it doesn't matter what logical plan you have about what you're going to eat or not eat, because your emotions will eventually win out, as in like every single time. And so sure, you can motivate or persuade yourself not to eat certain things, but until you unwire that emotional relationship with food that's occurring in your brain, and you fire and wire a new relationship with food, emotions will always win out in the long run. And again, it's not your fault. there's nothing wrong with you if you have an emotional relationship with food. It's a brain thing, a connection that got created that can be rewired at any time. You are never too young, too old, too lost, or too far gone to create that brain change. So yeah, that's reason number 2. And reason number 3 is you haven't ever fully committed to transforming your relationship with food. Okay, so this is the conversation that I had to eventually have with myself. And this is the conversation I have to have with every single one of my clients before we start working together. I always ask, are you committed to solving this? And are you committed to ending this struggle? And really, are you committed to healing your relationship with food in your body? And there is a huge difference between being interested in something versus being committed to something. Okay, so when I'm interested in something, I might do it, I might not. I might dabble, I might not. I'm not in it, but I'm not out of it. I'm in the gray. Or I'm just doing something halfway because it feels better than doing nothing at all. But in reality, you end up feeling worse because you know you're only dabbling. Because when you're merely interested in something, that's what you do. You dabble. But when I'm committed, a fire-breathing dragon and a tornado couldn't stop me. Like, it's non-negotiable. And you know what I mean too. Like, think about a time that you were so committed that nothing could and nothing did stop you. And then compare it to a time when you were like kind of in it, but not really. There's a big difference. So when it comes to ending this struggle and suffering around food, you cannot dabble. This is not something that goes away on its own, and it doesn't fix itself. One of my mentors says it best when he says, you can't be partially pregnant, as in you can't partially fix this problem. You have to fully commit when it comes to healing a disordered relationship with food. So for me, my enough is enough point came when I realized like I couldn't live another day living with all the stress and obsession and emotion that was coming alongside food, because it may sound dramatic to somebody that's never struggled with the demons of living in a food prison, but for all the ladies listening to this podcast, I know you get it. It was ruining my life. I felt awful about myself, and all of that shame and judgment and self-criticism I felt from it, it just spilled out into every other area of my life. And that is when I realized that I couldn't just dabble in fixing the problem. I had to get committed. As in, my internal dialogue had to shift from I want to or I'd like to I'm doing this. I'm freaking going to address my struggles with food once and for all. I'm going to learn a way of eating that I can actually live with easily and happily. And I am going to release myself from this prison I've been living in for 30 years. It's when the conversation shifted from it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because this is happening. So for my clients, some of their enough is enough moments came in the form of really like realizing they were passing on their food struggles to their children, like deathly afraid that if they didn't do something about it, they would have to witness their daughters or sons go through the same pain and suffering that they were experiencing. Some of my clients realized like they were losing connection to their husbands or their partners, that there was, only so many times that their partner could try to be intimate with them and get rejected, or, tell her she was beautiful and get rejected before the rift got too big to repair, and they were actually afraid that the hold that food had over their life would ruin their relationship. Some of my clients just realized how much money they were spending trying to fix the problem with diets and gym memberships, or simply how much they were spending on food. Like, did you know that the average dieter throws away $4,000 every single year in groceries that they buy for their diet but they don't use? And the average overeater spends over $5,000 per year on binge foods, drive-thrus, and Starbucks? So yeah, those are a lot of the enough is enough points. But for a lot of my clients, it was simply realizing that they were just sick and tired of food, keeping them in a prison of control. and shame and loneliness and just feeling like a failure. And they were sick of this being the one thing stealing their joy, robbing them of their freedom, and causing them to feel like they were trapped in a body that did not represent who they really were. So yeah, it shows up differently for each of us, but I believe that we all need to hit that enough is enough point that causes us to shift from being interested in something or interested in addressing the struggle to committed to solving it for good. Okay, so we can't take a look at why we overeat without looking at the opposite spectrum of this conversation. So the next part is, why do we restrict and deprive and control ourselves? So this is also one of the most common things I get asked, the most common frustrations I hear about with the women I talk to, and one of the topics that the health and weight loss industry are still throwing diets at to solve. And so it might sound a bit counterintuitive, but overeating isn't really a food problem. It's a relationship with food problem. And when you make the internal shifts in your thinking and you fire and wire a new relationship with food that sets you up for freedom, that is when the food can then just be food again. Because A, most women simply deprive themselves of what they actually need. And B, most women don't know how to, in the moment, distinguish between what they need and what they want. So let's talk about both of those things, all right? So the first part, why do you diet and starve and deprive yourself of what you need? Well, the simple answer is you most likely learned what I learned and what I've found almost every woman who struggles with her body learned, which again, and I'm guessing you're sensing a theme here, is the diet mentality, which is that eat less, move more mentality. And another way of looking at it is the weight loss mentality, like weight loss at the expense of health and happiness. And as we talk about in our stressless eating program, the repair mentality, like short-term fix or investing your time and energy in a short-term fix at the expense of long-term permanent results and happiness. Again, though, it's not your fault. I mean, there's an entire billion-dollar industry that is feeding this mentality to women of all ages, colors, shapes, and sizes. So if you're a woman and you have a pulse, chances are that this is the type of solution you are being given. And this almost definitely entails, you guessed it, restriction, deprivation, punishment, and persuasion, as in forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do to stay the course. And these are all weapons of control. But I've never met a woman that actually wants to feel more controlled by food or her body. What she wants is freedom. In reality, though, control is the opposite of freedom. Yet the consensus of the experts in health are throwing more diets, more band-aids, and more deprivation at the problem. And that inevitably leaves us stuck on that all or nothing, black, white, on, off results roller coaster. It's a recipe for failure. And unfortunately, I don't see the mainstream diet industry changing their tune anytime soon. That's why you have to take ownership of it yourself. Another diet will just make it worse. So that's the answer to the first part of this topic in terms of, why do you deprive yourself of what you need? That is what you are being taught. It's not your fault. You learned what I learned, the eat less, move more diet mentality. And unfortunately, that line of thinking will force you to use weapons of control. And by default, you're gonna move away from freedom and peace of mind and happiness, which is really what you want. But if we want freedom, as in breaking free from the food and body prison and feeling free to live our lives the way that we want and move towards peace and happiness and freedom, we must start practicing peace and happiness and freedom. So now, to address the second part of this, why is it so difficult in the moment to distinguish between what you need and what you want? I mean, this is one of the most common struggles present in my clients when they first come to work with me. Like, they aren't sure how to distinguish their reasons for eating. Like, is it because I need it? Like, do I require it? Or is it because I want it? Is it because I desire it? So why does this mix-up happen in our brains, making it feel impossible to distinguish between the two? My simple answer is this, we get good at whatever we practice. And again, if you're anything like me and most women that I encounter, chances are you've been practicing control around food for as long as you can remember. You've been practicing ignoring what you want and what you need in favor of controlling your body or controlling food. And the only way to break that habit and the wiring in your brain is to create new wiring in your brain. And again, it won't ever happen through a diet. So in other words, if you want to be different, you've got to see differently and you've got to think differently. And that means practicing a new way of being around food. So what does this look like practically speaking? Well, the way I personally see it, it's got to be a process of healing your relationship with food and really like relearning how to eat, not how to count food, not how to measure, not how to portion control, like how to use food as food and eat with freedom and choice and pleasure. Because again, if love and warm chocolate chip cookies is wrong, I don't want you to be right. In other words, it's a process where instead of focusing on like what you're eating, whether it's a carb, a fat, or has enough protein, whether it's good food, bad food, or whether you should or shouldn't eat it, that kind of language. Focusing on like how much it weighs, how many calories or points or grams or servings it has. Focusing on controlling, restricting, micromanaging, depriving, starving, maintaining your willpower, or obsessing over food, all of which cause you to focus, stress, and obsess over food itself. I believe the solution lives in making you a better, stronger, more powerful, and resilient version of you every single day. So that no matter what happens and no matter what you're in front of food-wise, you feel like you are the influencer in your life and over food, rather than reacting to your life and reacting to food. In other words, it's a matter of learning a new skill and like kind of like a new language and creating a new relationship with food. And it looks like this. First, you have to learn how to stop controlling food by learning how to influence who you're being around food so that you feel in control of yourself rather than relying on weapons of control like restriction, deprivation, and persuasion, or limited resources like willpower and discipline, because we all have very limited resources of that. So when you focus on you and you focus on influencing you and you focus on influencing who you're being and how you're feeling around food, and in turn, you change your relationship with food, like pick up some new food goggles and learn to see food through a new lens, then it simply becomes a matter of just walking around every single day with those new goggles everywhere that you go. That is where freedom lives. That is where peace of mind lives. And that is where you can finally find health and happiness, not forfeiting your health for your happiness. So, why do we overeat? Why do we commit to something and then ruin it by ditching our plans and again, overeat, overindulge, or overconsume? And at the sake of sounding like a broken record, here's what I can tell you again with the utmost certainty. Food is not the problem. Food is not the enemy. It's the diet mentality that's the enemy here. It's that all or nothing, black or white, up, down, on, off, diet roller coaster that's the problem. Because you can't ever get off. Or if you do, you become terrified you'll gain weight or go off the deep end. Either way, you're a slave to it. You're its hostage and it controls your life more than you do. And here's the honest truth. You'll never out diet, out willpower, or outsmart your relationship with food. Like never. It's never going to happen. And trying to address your internal struggles like the self-image and body image that's causing you to think and act and behave the way you currently are around food, addressing it with another diet or another exercise program, it's a recipe for failure. I can flat out guarantee it. Because again, you'll never be able to out diet, out willpower, or outsmart your current relationship with food. It really is as simple as that. And until you swim upstream and you address your relationship with food and you go heal that, Diets will end. They will fail you. And your brain will never get good at them. And you'll stay stuck on that all or nothing roller coaster because the solution does not live in another diet, program, or plan. And trust me, I tried to out diet and outwill my food struggles and my sugar addictions. I tried doing that for decades. But I mean it. The solution is not to go on another diet. The solution has to be a brain solution. If you ever want to solve this problem for good, it has to address the self-image in the brain, because when you change what you're seeing and what you're saying, and yeah, you also need a better strategy, that is when the diet madness can finally come to an end and the real healing can begin. And then, and only then, can you finally be free. Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com and sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good, but without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out for you there in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom, while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.